Week 23, day 1. How many days does it take to form a habit? That's a pop quiz question for the day. 21. If you do something for 21 days in a row, it will become a habit with you. The reason you tie your shoes the way you tie your shoes is for the first 21 days you did it, that's how you did it. So it became a habit you continue the rest of your life. If you want to test this theory, tie your shoes a different way for 21 days and see if it doesn't stick with you the rest of your life. Our son came home from the Naval Academy prep school, and when I picked him up at the airport, I said, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" He said, "I'm sleeping till noon." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "We've been getting up at 5 o'clock every morning for 6 months. I'm sleeping till noon." And I said, "Great." So the next morning I got up and it was about 6 o'clock and starting to school. And he's sitting up there on the dining table. I said, "What are you doing? I thought you'd sleep till noon." He said, 5 o'clock. I got up. I couldn't help it. I'm in such a habit. 21 days. Well, why are you doing all this, Coach? This is week 23, so that means this is the 23rd Monday in a row that you've done goals. So it ought to start being a habit. Becoming purpose-driven is really a habit as much as it is developing quality. It's really a habit. So we're developing the habit of being purpose-driven. Let me tell you a little story about goals and being purpose-driven. And I want you to think about this because this to me is very powerful. In nursing homes around the country, the death rate, that sounds morbid, doesn't it, really goes up after a special day or a holiday. Really. Why is that, you think? Well, here's what happens, and they've done research on this. My granddaughter's getting married, and I'm going to live until she gets married. I had a really good friend of mine that was a coach in Cleburne, Texas, and his wife had terminal cancer and was a wonderful woman, a teacher and just a wonderful lady. And she said, "I'm going to live to see my daughter get married." Her daughter was getting married that spring, and the doctor told the coaching friend of mine she won't make it. She can't do it too long. She died the day after her daughter got married. The purpose of the story is this. If people can will themselves to do anything, to stay alive until they accomplish a goal, what can you do? If you set down a goal, and I mean, it's like Jim Collins says, you get goosebumps when you see yourself accomplishing that goal. And it's yours, and you claim it, and you know it can happen, and you've got a plan for it, and you've got a timeline for it. You can do it. And that's what writing down goals. And you write down 3, or you write down 1. Hopefully by now you're writing 3 goals that you're going to get done today, or you're going to get done this week, or whatever time frame that you're putting it in. And remember last week we took the jar, and that's your time frame, whether it be a day or a week, and we put the sand in it. You remember the sand? The sand was the cell phone and chilling and watching TV. And the golf balls were the goals. Well, if you get the sand in the time frame before you put the golf balls in, the golf balls, which are the goals, don't go. You got to take care of the priorities. You have to prioritize. And we'll talk about that a lot in a couple of weeks. This week, the quality that we're going to develop is humor. And you say, humor? That's what made one of the 300 greatest leaders what they were? This quality of humor? You bet it did. Matter of fact, humor is one of the qualities that was most representative in each of these 300 people. The definition is the quality of being a friend to all, the humor. Humor. Listen to the quote. It's a little bit long, so you got to read it. It's on page 127. Page 127, developingcharacter.org. The pretense leads up to the real thing. When you're not feeling particularly friendly, but you know you ought to be, the best thing you can do very often is put on a friendly manner and behave as if you were a nicer person than you actually are. And in a few minutes, as we have all noticed, you will be really feeling friendlier than you were. Very often, the only way to get a quality in reality is to start behaving as if you had it already. Act as if you've already accomplished your goal. When you act as if you've already accomplished your goal, it's much easier to get your goal. As I've mentioned many times, I love to read about Lincoln. I have no doubts Lincoln was by far the greatest president and one of the greatest men that ever lived. And Lincoln, most of the time, when Lincoln wanted to make a point, he told a humorous story. He was very good at telling stories, and especially humorous stories. As a matter of fact, he would make Stanton, his Secretary of War, so mad because they would be discussing the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves, or the war, and Lincoln would begin, well, let me tell you a story. And Stanton would say, I don't want to hear another story. Lincoln was debating with Douglas, and this is where Lincoln became famous, in his Lincoln-Douglas debates. And Douglas made the statement, do you think what I said was foolish? And Lincoln very thoughtfully looked at him and he said, you know, Mr. Douglas, the Bible says better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and dispel all doubt. Well, that's in Proverbs, but it's not exactly like that. But it made his point. Better to be thought a fool. And that to me is the essence of Lincoln. The wit and the ability to come back. It's better to be thought a fool than open your mouth and dispel all doubt. Think about all the fools that you listen to, especially the politicians. All you got to do is turn on the TV and you think, did you ever read that proverb that says better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and dispel all doubt? Or the sports announcers, I don't like that play, I'll tell you. And you think, hey, you need to read Proverbs. That's humor. See you tomorrow, 8:30.